Welcome back to What Moves You with Jessie. I'm so excited to share a new guest with you today, a wonderful human being by the name of Bear Weil. We met at a workshop, and I won't go into too much detail because we talk about it in the episode, but this is a fun little tidbit. We met at a workshop called the Soul-Centered Series. And when I took his number into my phone, because I fell in love with him at first sight, I put him into my phone as Bear Soul, because I didn't know his last name at the time. And I tell you, that was the universe working in my favor. Because this man, as you will feel for the next 45 minutes or so, is pure love and soul. I'm really excited for you to listen in on everything that came up for us today on being human. Enjoy. So, Bear, I am so excited to have you on What Moves You with Jessie. I feel like I should kind of let folks know as we just had a little, what do they call that? A tete-a-tete or a tete-to-tete?
Yeah, depending on which accent you're using.
So for everybody out there listening, I met Bear in a really beautiful community of 3 principles, which is what I share on this podcast all the time, the inside out experience and inside out understanding, I should say. And it was called the Soul-Centered Series with Miss Rohini Ross, somebody that we both love and adore. And I was help assisting the program, and Bear was there in all of his sparkle and all of his magic. And I would just honestly, I would say that you were somebody that out of all the folks that were in the group, every morning in our early mornings, grabbing our coffee and kind of getting it together, you were truly, I say sparkle because you are just a light bulb, Bear. And I've loved that we've stayed in touch and past that workshop. And the reason why I wanted Bear to come on the program is because when we talk, we just dive right into that beautiful feeling that is available for all of us. The conversation may go 10 different directions, but the feeling is what stays present the entire time. And I always feel so good when we talk and after we talk. So when I started to have this idea of who could I have on to start, kind of spicing it up, and had Mom on, which everybody loves. But, and Mom and I even talked about, who else, could you have on that could have these types of conversations with you? And Bear, you were the first person that popped up in my mind. So thank you for being willing and open, for sharing who you are with everyone. And what do you do in your days, sir? What do you do? What is it that you, who else gets your magic?
Well, okay, so let's address the magic first. Because, see, this is what I love is that, there's a couple of things coming to mind. One is that was a very lovely introduction, by the way. 10 years, 20 years ago, that would have made me squirm,
Yeah.
But here's why it doesn't make me squirm anymore, is because I could very easily describe you the same way.
Oh.
Because when we would connect in the back of that classroom before the class started, we would just connect, and we would just start talking, and we would have a good time. And, and so that's what I do with my days, to whatever, I try to meet people where they are. I don't, I have very strong views that are based really on my experience, but I'm really careful to not. I here's how I learned it. I learned it by talking to my daughters mainly, because when I first stumbled on this understanding of the three principles, and Sydney Banks and George and Linda and Rohini and Angus and everybody, I became a crusader almost immediately, and I had to tell everybody in the world about what I found. And I would be talk to my daughters about it, and I'd see their eyes roll back in their heads, and I would realize, oh, too much, yeah. So I'd have to stop. And one time I was doing that with my younger daughter, and we were having lunch together, and I was talking with her, and she just goes like this. She goes, "I'm tapping out." But I kept going, and then she did it again. "I'm tapping out." And then I got it. Oh, too much. So I just stopped all that. And so now it's like, if I see something, and sometimes I see it and I'll share it and it won't land with people. And I'm okay with it. I'm totally okay with that. Because it doesn't have to land, because I can just, all I have to do is look at me and I can see how I learn. And it's really clear to me that I can't see until I can see. Yeah. That's really, really clear. So, that's what I do all day. And watch Dodger games and go swimming and go for a hike. That's what I do every day.
I love that. It's so familiar to me, the what you said about becoming the crusader.
Yeah.
Because the first couple of years, definitely the first year, when I had my insight, and I've said this story over and over to the folks listening, so they know it, but this insight when I was really depressed and I was working at an agency, and I got in the shower, and it was me putting my head over going, God, I'm so tired of thinking the same 10 thoughts. And in that moment, from this deep place, this fresh thought came through that everything, all of my suffering was coming from my thoughts, not from the people and the circumstances that I thought they were coming from. And then, of course, that's what led me to calling my mom. And Mom said, that sounds a lot like a man like named Sydney Banks. He, it's the three principles. And that's what led me on my journey of then finding this understanding. And once I got over my slight little ego reaction of, wait, this isn't something new that I have found. I thought I thought this was something fresh because, I come from a family of psychologists. So in my worldview, it was something new, to have to realize how, how much your thinking can contaminate your experience of life. Anyway, I became that crusader just like you. So I got the giggles for at least a solid year. Every conversation I was in, that's just thought. That's just thought. That's just thought. And my moment, like your daughter, of hitting the table of like, I tap out, was I have 3 older sisters. And one of them said to me that another one of my sisters had said to her, I haven't seen Jessie in a while, but how's she doing? And then they had that conversation. And then she said, why don't you just call her? And she was like, I don't know. Is she still talking about thought all the time?
Yeah.
And although I was a little bit like bummed for a good second and I licked my wounds, I remember I was driving home from my sister's house who told me that, that she had said that. And at first I was like, what? I mean, how could you not want to hear or learn about this? Had that. And then it dawned on me, just like it dawned on you, that me pushing that agenda was making everybody get in their head, which was the complete antithesis of getting a beautiful feeling to be able to see something new and fresh. And I was totally just adding to the noise in their heads, even though I was so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an amazing thing when you realize that, and then you just, it gives you freedom to just live your life.
Yeah, it's really cool how it doesn't matter anymore. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I'm so crystal clear that people can't see until they can. Because I couldn't until I could. And I spent a huge chunk of my life just beating the holy shit out of myself. Because I didn't get it. Whatever it was. I didn't even know what it was, you know. And it turns out all it is just being where my feet are.
Wow. Yeah.
I'd heard things like that. You know, I've heard for years. I remember when I was really young, I was working in a restaurant, and this other guy that worked in the restaurant, he was, you know, this was back in the 60s. So we were all hippies, right? And he was talking about being present, and that sounded really hippie to me. And I didn't understand it. I honestly didn't. And I used to ask him questions about it. I remember asking him, so when I get a song stuck in my head, am I not being present? And he said, correct. And I still didn't get it.
Yeah.
Just because I wasn't ready. I wasn't open enough, or I hadn't let go. And I don't know what it is, but I didn't get it, you know, and now it makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
When you were sharing just that last little piece, there are two words that you say that I just love. And one is, or phrases.
Yeah.
One is, it occurred to me. And the other one was, it dawned on me.
Yeah.
I just love those words. I love them so much. I made a list. This is what I do. You know, this is what I do with my day. So it occurs to me, it dawns on me, it becomes clear. It turns out, comes to me. And then there's one that I stole from Sid Banks, the penny dropped.
Yes.
I don't use that one very often, but I was thinking about that earlier today because I had an experience when I was about 28 years old where I had and I think I might have shared this with you when we talked last time, but I don't remember if I did for sure, because I talk about this stuff so much that,
Yeah.
you know,
I repeat all the time too.
Yeah,
Can't
yeah.
help it.
So exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll just share with you what it was again.
Yeah.
What it was I was in this program. It was a recovery program that my mother-in-law was in, and she was in recovery for alcoholism. Mm-hmm. And this particular program wanted to treat the whole family.
Okay.
And so I came home from work one day, and Norma was telling me, we have to go to these meetings. They want us to go to these meetings. And the meetings were 3 days a week. And they were, I forget, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday or something like that. Mm-hmm. And we lived in Oxnard, and these meetings were in a hospital in San Pedro. So it was like an hour and a half drive each way.
On a good day.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, and I was going just to be moral support for my mother-in-law and the rest of the family, because I didn't have any alcoholism in my family. And they would do these things where, well, they had three parts to it. They had, the first part was, they called it, well, they didn't have a name for it. It was a meeting where we would meet as a group in a room with a counselor, and it was all relatives of the people who were in the treatment program, the alcoholics or addicts or whatever they were. So, and as my mother-in-law, so I didn't really put much energy into it. It was like I was kind of along for the ride. Then the second part was, after that, they would have what they called education. That was in a big theater style room, where they had a stage and a screen, and they would show films about alcoholism. They would have lectures about alcoholism. They would bring in panels and talk about alcoholism. And I thought that was really interesting because I didn't know anything about it. And it was like all new. And not knowing anything about it, and learning about it and starting to see how pervasive it is, because I had no idea at the time.
Right.
And so the third part of that program each night was a meeting with a counselor. Sometimes they'd have two or even three in the room, but usually there was one lead counselor that we met with every time. And she would say things to me that would just go over my head. I know what she was talking about. And one of those things was, one time they handed out these questionnaires, and we were to take them home, fill them out, and bring them back. And so I did. I answered all the questions to the best of my ability. Went back, and she, I think it must have been the next session after that, she pulled out mine and she said, you answered one question on here and I don't understand your answer. And I go, oh, really? She goes, yeah, the question was something like, describe your family or describe your childhood or something like that, and the interesting thing was that at that point in my life, I had almost no memory of my childhood. Wow. Almost none. There were a couple of little events, occasional events that I could remember, but generally, nothing. So I wrote some kind of a glossy, grew up with 4 brothers and 1 sister and a dog and a cat and a big happy family kind of thing. And she points to that answer and she says, that answer doesn't tell me anything. Well, what do you want to know? She goes, I want to know what it was like. I go, that is what it was like. She goes, no, I want to know, what was it like? And this is going over my head. I don't know what she was talking about. And then finally she leans over and she kind of whispers in my ear. She says, who are you trying to protect? What the hell are you talking about? In my mind. Yeah. Didn't say that, but that's what I thought. I didn't know what she was talking about. So she laid off of me and went and ganged up on somebody else for a while, and we left that night, and in the car on the way home, who are you trying to protect just started doing a tape loop. Was just going over, who are you trying to protect? Who are you trying to protect? Who are you trying to protect? And then boom, the penny dropped, but it was like a 1-ton penny. And it was like, my dad's an alcoholic. Bam.
Oh, wow.
And I like to look back at that as my first real spiritual awakening.
Yes.
Because I had no clue up to that point. I mean, you can call it denial, I suppose. But if it was denial, it was in no way conscious.
Right.
So that was just the way it was. So then it was kind of funny because then I started this quest. And the quest was to uncover the secrets of the family, that the what else, if that's going on, what else is going on? But I wasn't looking for an answer to those questions as much as I was looking for the key that would explain everything.
Interesting.
The key that would explain my family, the key that would explain, and I didn't know it then, but I was depressed. Like, if I had been diagnosed any time during my life from about, I don't know, well, from about probably 10 or 11 years old, all
Wow.
the way up into my 50s,
Wow.
I would have been diagnosed with major depression,
Yeah.
because eventually I was,
Right.
but in my 50s.
Yeah.
So, so nothing conscious, it was just, I know looking back, it's like, it occurred to me that I was just trying to protect myself. I was just trying to do the best I could with what I had, with what I understood at that time.
Yes.
So it made sense that I couldn't be carrying those memories around all the time. I was having enough trouble dealing with the present and the memories that I did have, the adult memories or the teenage memories,
Yes.
So, so yeah, I love that whole, it occurred to me.
Yes.
Yeah. And that really helps me with my daughter
Yes.
or with anybody else, because it takes away any expectation of somebody having to get it.
What thank you for sharing that story. You actually hadn't told me that story. So that was fresh for me. So that's why I'm so quiet, because I'm really just I'm swimming in it. It's just so beautiful. What do you think so did that kind of feel like the beginning of, obviously in hindsight, because when you're in the middle of it, you're just in the middle of it. But does that feel like that was your first realization of, like, did you see that your mind was at play there at that point? Or was that something?
No, 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 no,
No.
no, no, no. I didn't see it like that at all. I was still in fact, that was kind of the key, looking for the key. I was still looking for the circumstance or the event or what was it? I actually did discover when I discovered like the moment when the depression started. I could put my finger right on it. And here's how I know I could do it, was because it really hurt. When I would think about that moment and that situation, it hurt.
Yes.
And so, and I knew that was when it started, because it was, I'll share with you what it was. I was in school, and I loved school until about fourth grade. And I got sick. I had the mumps, I think, and I was out of school for a week. And when I went back, the class had gotten ahead of me, and I didn't know what to do about it.
Yes.
I didn't know that I could ask for help.
Yes.
I knew I couldn't get it from my parents, because they were all caught up in what they were caught up in.
Yes.
So I knew they weren't available. My siblings, definitely not. We were too busy fighting with each other. And so I didn't know what to do. And so what my mind did was and now I know it was my mind.
Yeah.
It came up with a solution. And the solution was, oh, screw it. Nobody else cares. Why should I? And I just quit. I quit school. I quit doing, I went from that point all the way through high school and well into college. Didn't do an assignment. Didn't do homework. Didn't read any of the books I was supposed to read.
Wow.
And somehow they graduated.
I was going to say, and how did you even go to college? Like, why did you even want to? I mean, does that even?
Well, yeah, that came, it took me 7 years to get an AA degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I always said that I was rudderless during that period of my life. I was rudderless. I was just blown with the wind. I didn't know, what was what. But two things. One was I learned to swim in high school. I think we did talk about that.
Yes.
And I learned to swim in high school, and I learned to swim because I joined the swim team.
That's right.
The coach said he didn't care if you could swim or not. If you couldn't swim, he'd teach you. And so I thought, well, nothing to lose there. So I went out for swimming. So when I went to college, the college I went to didn't have a pool. So that wasn't motivation. But they built one while I was going to school there. And I wanted to swim. So I got my grades up enough so I could swim.
Isn't that amazing?
And then after my 2 years of swimming, I decided I wanted to try a 4-year school. And so I got my grades up so I could get into, I went to San Francisco State, and I studied art. And I only stayed a year. That was all I could take. And then, one thing led to another, and I ended up in my career and married and all that. So never finished school, but now it's kind of a moot point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how when it kind of is in theme with what we're talking about, when it matters, then it'll matter.
Yeah.
Meaning, I recently had, I would say probably, and just a week ago, I had this old thought system, this old circuit show up that was just making me feel insecure. It was very humbling because I haven't had one in quite a while that made me tank in a mood.
Yeah.
Of course, I have we all have insecure thinking all the time, but
Sure.
Typically I can see right through it and be like, oh, no, thank you. But this last one, I would say, I'm so, even in the midst of it, makes me misty-eyed. Even in the midst of it, I was so grateful to know. Gotta grab the tissues.
I've got a box handy too.
This is also why we get along so well.
Yeah.
In the midst of it, I was so grateful to know that I was okay and that, I would find my energy again, or the energy would just show up for all this. I had all these ideas of things that I could be more productive at that I wasn't, or if even feeling excited about, things that I would typically feel excited about, I wasn't. And, it was kind of, it just showed up for me as really real, as something I needed to do something about.
Yeah.
And, man, I was talking to Mike about it, and he would is so endearing to me that he could just be present with me, kind of help me try to see around it, but at the same time go, this, it's just that it's not hitting you really hard right now. It's for whatever reason, it's really keeping you, I didn't feel stuck, because that doesn't feel like the right word, but attached to these ideas.
Yeah.
And I was so grateful to know that it would pass, but my God, I kind of was getting at my wit's end of feeling the uncomfortability. It's like what I share with folks all the time is being uncomfortable is okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But man, my patience was wearing thin.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Right.
Yeah.
And
we'll do it again.
And we'll do it again. Exactly. But man, the thing that occurred to me was, it was a few days of me staying in that, and kind of feeling like I was going through the motions of life, and that feels yucky to me, because it's like the more that you break out of your head, the feeling that comes from life, I mean, I could see something in a really beautiful light and it'll move me to tears normally.
Yeah.
So when I feel really distant from life, it's like I almost grieve what I know I'm missing. It's an odd thing. Anyway, Mike was on his way home from being out in the world, and he texted me, I'm on my way home. And I had this moment of going, oh, good. That means I can tell him all about how I'm still having all these thoughts.
Yeah.
I actually thought that. And that was the thing that made me go, wait a second. So he's been out all day. And I am so relieved, because the second he walks in the door, I'm going to just wrestle him to the ground and give him, tell him all about my bad mood. What a bummer is that? And just that made me kind of reflect and go, wait, if it's a bummer for him, that's a bummer for me. So what am I doing? And it dawned on me that it was just these old beliefs that I was choosing to play in the sandbox with. And I thought, wait a second. I can choose differently. Those can show up, and then I can go, no thanks. I'm not in the mood anymore. And then I felt free again. And when he walked in, I didn't even share any of it because it fell away.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
Why I connect that to when it matters and it'll matter.
Right.
Is because I know these things deep down. I talk to people about this stuff day in and day out. It's my favorite conversation to have.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for whatever reason, for several days, it was more important to me to engage in these old beliefs and not see around them.
Yeah.
And I was doing my best to not judge myself for it, because I knew that wouldn't make it any better. But I was having kind of a hard time finding my faith that it would move on. And it was amazing to see how all of a sudden, the more you relax into that, at some point, even if you can't see straight, at some point, it'll occur to you how to help yourself. And that's what happened. It's like all of a sudden in this moment, I couldn't have thought my way to going, you should not be swimming in all of these crappy things and spewing it all over Mike's life, because that's making his life a bummer. I couldn't have thought my way to that, but it was in this moment where it just hit me that I didn't want to do that anymore. And in that process is what made me realize, well, I don't want to do that to myself either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. That's so funny, because one time I was having this kind of conversation with somebody, and I just, I have this sense of humor that has shown up in recent years, and
wait, are you saying this hasn't been you forever? Because your humor feels like it's just been a part of it.
There's been a fraction of it there forever. Okay. Yeah. But I've found that it's been blossoming more and more lately. Anyway, I was having a conversation like this with somebody, and I said, oh, hashtag me too. And then I thought, well, that's probably not the politically correct use of that term.
That's true. It's so true. But my God, it definitely feels...
It sounded funny to me at the time, Obviously, it still does.
It's amazing to realize our humanity and just nice to feel relaxed about it, no matter what's
Yeah.
up.
I love it. Yeah. I was on a meeting this morning, and what was the meeting about? It was about it was in a different context, but it was about I'm going to kind of give it away, but I don't care. It was about being restored to sanity.
Okay.
Okay. So some people will know where I got that, but that's okay. Um, and it occurred to me, this experience that I had just a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago. I went to IKEA, and I was gonna, if you see my house, it's combination of mid-century modern and 21st century IKEA.
Well, you've done it beautifully, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I went to the little cafeteria, and I was having a meal there, and I was watching this couple, and they had a little, wasn't even a toddler yet. It was a baby that could just barely stand. And the dad was sitting with the baby standing on his legs, facing him. And the baby was like grabbing the dad's nose, grabbing the dad's ear, grabbing the dad's cheek, just playing with his dad. And the kid was having so much fun. Just, he'd do it, and his dad would make a face, and he'd laugh, and he's just having the best time. And his dad was having a great time, and his mom was having a great time. I was having a great time. So, just watching it, and it was so fun to watch. And eventually they got up, and they they left, and then I finished my meal, and I got up, and I was walking through the showroom, and they were in the showroom where all the living room furniture, the sofas and everything were, and they were trying out sofas and stuff. And so I walked up to them, and I said, I just got to tell you how much I enjoyed watching you guys with your child. And while I was talking with them, they were talking, about how much they enjoy their child. And I'm going, that is so obvious.
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, and I said, what I like about watching that was your child was so here and so now. Everything's here and now. And to me, that is sanity.
Yes.
That's sanity. And and this kid is proof that we all come into this world with it. It's not a foreign thing. We come in with it. But then somehow it gets, we get distracted by things, and we start adding meaning to things that don't actually have meaning, and we start getting caught up in ourselves, and then before you know it, we're insane.
Yes.
For lack of a better term.
For lack of a better term, yeah.
Yeah, but we're not really. We're just navigating the territory, learning, and eventually, one way or another, we all come back to that state that little kid was experiencing.
Yes. It's kind of when I share with folks about kind of at the beginning stages of teaching, waking them up to the fundamentals of how they're creating things inside. And oftentimes I'll use the example of someone being at the end of their life.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I mean, I personally have heard it from two people on their way out. And even if somebody hasn't heard it directly to them, they've definitely heard it from other people, other stories. But that, like you said, we return to that sanity. And oftentimes then we're looking back in our life and going, oh my God, there were so many times, whether it's, I wish I would have said I love you more. I wish I would have gone after that dream job, or any of the, I wish I would have left that marriage sooner. We have so much hindsight around how it's just whatever is present in our mind that we were taking seriously that stopped us from doing what our heart desired. And it's kind of it's a sobering thought, because everybody can kind of relate to that, where it's like, you get to the end of your life and, we throw it around in society so often, like, don't have regrets, don't have regrets. And it's like, without having any kind of understanding of what that even means on a deeper level, that just adds more pressure. But when you kind of break it down and you realize, like you said, and seeing that in a child, and then also seeing that or hearing that from somebody who's on the other end, you realize that it's everything in the middle that we've, that we're working with and trying to manage inside of ourselves, that takes us out of that place of freedom to go where so what's present for me to say is what our heart desires, whatever that even means.
Yeah, I think it's really, really hard to have a regret when I'm present.
Yes.
It's really hard. It's like, can't hold it. I used to be able to hold it. I got to hold on to it for years. And now I can't hold it. What's this world coming to, Jesse?
That is so good. And it's so true.
Yeah.
Can't hold it. Oh my God.
What you were talking about, because I've been, in fact, this week is the first anniversary of a very, very dear and close friend who passed away. And so a small group of us got together on the day she passed, which the anniversary was Monday. And we met on the beach, and so I've experienced 3 deaths since the pandemic started. Her, and then another really long time friend that I had. I think I might have talked with you about him. He was 99 years old.
Yes.
Yeah. And just a character, and just a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
He drove his family nuts, but he was fun for me. Anyway, and then there was another really, really close friend that I hiked with, and I did things together with him, and we were both Dodger fans, and we'd be watching a Dodger game and texting each other, about the game, and so I miss him. But and then I had I took care of my dad until he passed away for the last few years of his life. Then I took care of my mom, who had severe dementia for the last few years of her life. And then I had this other friend who was a close friend of a man who was really, really close, and probably the one man that's had the most profound effect on me in my life. He was a man that I always described as the kindest, most loving man I've ever known.
Wow.
And he and I got to be close friends for 19 years.
Wow.
And so I took care of his wife before she passed, and she had severe dementia too. And the dementia piece of it is interesting because we couldn't communicate verbally. And the nonverbal communication was real difficult to read.
Mm-hmm.
But as I watched these people come to the ends of their lives in ways that they weren't able to communicate, so there was no regretting that I didn't say I love you to them, because there was never the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what I did get to do was I got to show it. I got to show up. I got to go visit, and that was one of those things where when I would go to visit them, especially as the diseases progressed, not with my dad, because my dad kind of he went over the period of about a week. He decided to go and he went.
Yeah.
That's what he did. And I respect him for that.
Yeah.
But my mom and this other woman, they went the long, slow way. And I would just go sit with them. I'd go just sit. And one of them, her name was Dolores, the friend. When hospice took over and was coming on a regular basis, the nurse and I were talking, about visiting, and I just told him, I said, I just go and I just bring some love into the room. That's all I do. I just go and sit with her and just sit in love, and that's enough. And he lit up, he goes, yeah. See, that's enough.
That's it.
Yeah, that is it.
That's it. It's the answer.
Always present. It doesn't go anywhere because it's always present.
Yeah. Like you said at the beginning, it's wherever your feet are.
Yeah.
I
didn't always see it.
Say again.
I just didn't always see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're making me think of this. I recently watched a video with Dick and Bettinger, who, we all love and adore. And he had said something about I can't remember the context of the question that somebody had given him, but he said, have you ever noticed, and this makes me think of your IKEA moment. He said, have you ever noticed, if somebody brings a baby into like a waiting room, they're not talking about what they're teaching or how they're bringing in a good feeling or trying to change anybody's moods or, he said, they're brought into the room and immediately the feeling changes around them. People are pulled into even just looking at the baby or talking about the baby with the mom, or, it's like just their being immediately shifts how everybody's feeling around it. And he said, he was pointing to exactly what you're pointing to, that, and what we've kind of already shared about, that is at the core, that is our essence, every single person, whether you remember it or feel it or not, like that is what is constantly us. And seeing the power in just being with people, I think that's what it was, is that somebody was kind of asking around about how to be more of a powerful, coach or a helper and helping navigate somebody's issues. And he said he didn't even talk to any of those parts of the question. He just shared this story, and then he said, what do you think about that? And then the person who had, posed the question said, I get it. Just being with people.
Yeah.
Is what drops them into that feeling in themselves. And it's amazing what we can see when we're in that space. And what we can feel. And how so many people don't feel that very often, So when you get a little taste of it, And then Dickon did say, and then it's good. Then it is your job for them to realize that it's not you bringing them that good feeling. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It took me a while to catch on to that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I remember at the very beginning of me kind of seeing this stuff, when I would get caught up in my head, I would play a Sydney Banks audio and go, oh, I need to go on a walk and listen to a Sid audio, and that'll get me back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it inevitably would, but it wasn't Sid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the fact that I wasn't, paying attention to all of my upset.
Yeah. It's the fact that love is here all the time. It's there is no time. You can't take it away. You can't, it's just ever present. And it's ever available. And it doesn't go anywhere. It's us that our attention gets diverted, or we get distracted, or we forget, or we get caught up in our thinking. And I do it, just like you were talking about. I do it. I remember taking on this volunteer position a couple years ago, and just I knew what I had to do, and when I would look at it, it just looked like a lot, and it was overwhelming, and I just couldn't. I felt like I couldn't do it. And then I'd start worrying about, well, this is gonna start affecting other people, and they're gonna know I didn't do it, and then it would boom off to the races,
Yes.
But I had enough understanding at that point to know that it was my thinking, even though I was caught up in it. I knew it. I knew what it was.
Yes.
I didn't know how to stop it.
Yes.
In the moment. And the way it stopped was I just started doing stuff. I just took one step in the direction of getting some of that stuff done, not worrying about all of it, just do one thing. And then I felt better.
Yes.
And then before I knew it, I was on track, and I'm really okay with being human. It turns out.
I love that. And that's been my experience too. It's amazing what happens, what our mind serves us up when we just, just start moving. And I don't mean that in a pressury way, but just exactly like what you're talking about. Just like what you're talking about.
Yeah, just put one foot in front of the other. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah. And take breaks.
Yeah.
Sit down, watch a Dodger game, and don't feel guilty because I'm not doing all those things I think I'm supposed to be doing. Just
exactly
have a life.
Have a life.
Yeah.
What a concept. You mean
have a life.
Yeah. You mean
I think I will.
Yeah. Oh God, that's so good. The idea of like, oh, we're actually allowed to enjoy life on our way to whatever it is that we think, we all think we're supposed to just like work our asses off and be in burnout mode until there's some elusive place to reach, goal to reach, to where then we're going to be relaxed and happy and be able to enjoy life.
Yeah, either that or hang on to that old idea of life sucks and then you die.
Oh my God. Oh God. The things we do.
We used to think, Jesse, the things we used to think.
Exactly. Oh, Bear. Well, it's been an hour. That flew.
I knew it would. I knew it would.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful conversation.
Yeah, my pleasure. It has. It really has. And let's do it again.
Please. I would love to have you back on.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to call you anyway, just for our normal catch-ups.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're open to it, I would love to.
See, this didn't feel like anything other than that. to
I
me,
know. Me
you
too.
know, so, yeah, let's do it again soon, whether you record it or not.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Well, don't leave me yet. I want to say goodbye to you properly after I hang up the call with everybody. But but I will say goodbye to everybody who's listening. And thank you again, Bear, for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
So wonderful. All right. See you all next week, everybody. Talk to you soon.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to share with friends and family and give us a rate and review on iTunes so more folks find us in this little corner of the podcast world. And give me a call. The hotline is always open for questions and comments. The number is 818-646-JESS. That's 818-646-JESS. Sending love in all directions, and I'll see you next week.